The room was quiet, too quiet for what had just happened. Inside a private UN chamber in Geneva, a low-level U.S. diplomat leaned across the table and whispered words that would soon shake the world. Trump says Traoré is just another African rebel in uniform. The words weren't meant to leave the room, but they did. And by sunset, they had reached Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Ouagadougou. His face didn't change, his voice didn't rise, but his silence was loud enough to freeze his cabinet. Behind his eyes burned a storm only a few in the world had ever seen. Not anger, not pride, something deeper, wounded dignity. That night, Traoré canceled all his scheduled meetings. For hours he sat in his office, staring at the framed photo of Thomas Sankara on the wall, a man who died because he dreamed Africa could stand tall. Then, quietly, Traoré picked up a pen and wrote 6 words on paper. Just 6. If Trump steps into Burkina Faso. He didn't finish the sentence, but tomorrow, the world would. By sunrise, the world was watching. A blurry photo leaked, Traoré, stone-faced, holding a note that ended in dots. Speculations ran wild. Had he declared war? Was it a threat, a plea, or something else? CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, and even TikTok live streamers scrambled to decode it. Pundits debated. U.S. politicians demanded clarification. But back in Burkina Faso, Traoré said nothing. Instead, he visited a small village, Koudougou, where dozens of children were orphaned during a French drone strike years ago. There, under a mango tree, he met 10-year-old Aissata. She had one leg. Her left eye was gone, but she smiled and handed Traoré a crayon drawing, him, holding hands with her and other kids. He didn't speak, but his eyes filled with something raw, pain, rage, love. He hugged her gently and whispered, "No man who mocks our pain should walk on our soil without feeling it." That evening, Traoré walked outside and faced the cameras. For the first time in days, he spoke. If Trump steps into Burkina Faso, he won't leave the same. His voice didn't shake, but the ground beneath the world did. The backlash was immediate and terrifying. That same night, a letter was slipped under the door of the Burkina Faso embassy in Paris. No name, no return address, only one sentence. If Traoré shows up in New York next week, he dies. The threat was real. French intelligence confirmed it came from an extremist faction, angry about Traoré's anti-West policies. But Traoré didn't blink. Instead, he told his security team, "Double security for the kids at the orphanage, and tell the UN I will still attend." Meanwhile, in the US, Trump responded on his Truth Social platform, "Traoré is all talk. He wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real fight." Sad. The post racked up millions of likes, but one man wasn't laughing. Colonel Ousmane Diallo, Traoré's most loyal military advisor, slammed the phone down. "He's mocking us, Ibrahim. He's mocking your scars, your soul." But Traoré remained still. He quietly opened a drawer, pulled out a small wooden box, and handed it to Diallo. Inside was the bullet that almost killed him during the 2022 coup. "This," he said, "taught me how to feel pain and keep walking. Let him come." But deep down, he knew the world was about to burn. Burkina Faso's national broadcast interrupted regular programming for an emergency segment. The host looked pale. The nation held its breath. They aired never-before-seen footage of a mother named Mariam Ouedraogo, crying softly beside a framed picture of her son, Idrissa. He had joined Traoré's volunteer defense forces and was killed protecting civilians during a terrorist raid. Through tears, she said, "My boy died because he believed in something. Not money, not power, but dignity." The camera cut to Traoré standing silently beside her, his hands trembling slightly. Then Mariam turned and looked at him, not as a president, but as a fatherless boy himself. "If Trump ever steps foot here," she said, "he must visit this grave." That clip broke the internet. People cried. Others got angry. Even neutral journalists couldn't stay neutral anymore. One American anchor whispered live on air, "We've misunderstood him. This man isn't playing politics. He's carrying ghosts." The video got over 60 million views in 12 hours. But in a shadowed room across the world, someone else was watching and planning something dark. A worn-out envelope arrived at the presidential palace. No stamps, no address, just the initials, CS. Inside, it wasn't a threat, but a confession. The letter came from Christopher Stanton, a retired CIA field operative once stationed in West Africa. He wrote, "I was part of the mission that fed false intelligence on your movement. We branded you a threat because we feared your ideas." He ended it with chilling regret. "You're not the enemy. You're the awakening. I'm sorry for what we did." Traoré read the letter twice. Then he stood up, walked outside, and gave the envelope to his press secretary. "Read it publicly, word for word." The world listened, shocked. A former American spy admitting Traoré was never the villain? Tears rolled down the cheeks of students and universities across Senegal, Mali, and Ghana, who had always looked up to him. In the slums of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, people played the audio over loudspeakers. The truth was out, but so was the danger, because the more people loved him, the more powerful enemies he made. The call came at 3:17 a.m. Private line, unknown number. Traoré answered. A deep American voice said, "If you speak one more time about Trump or the CIA, Assata dies." Silence. The voice hung there for a moment. Then, click. Traoré sat there in the dark, the phone still to his ear. For the first time since the war, his heart beat out of rhythm. He rushed to check security footage at the orphanage. All seemed normal. Guards posted, kids asleep. But his mind wasn't. What if it was real? What if they were watching? He called Colonel Diallo. Triple security, not just around the orphanage, around that child. No one sees her, not even me, without clearance. By morning, Traoré appeared again in front of the cameras. But something had changed. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He didn't rage. He simply said, "I will not be silent, even if it kills me." That clip alone reached 93 million views in 24 hours, but the more he spoke, the more the world divided. The countdown to New York had begun, and someone out there was ready to strike. That morning, the world awoke to a single photo. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, sitting barefoot on the dusty floor of a classroom in Dori, northern Burkina Faso, surrounded by children with no shoes, no parents, and no future. His arm was around a blind boy named Souleymane, who was humming a national anthem he could not hear. No press, no speeches. Just him, listening. A young teacher named Maimouna snapped the photo secretly and posted it with one caption: "He doesn't lead from palaces, he leads from the ground." Within hours, it had 127 million views. Celebrities reposted it. Journalists wept on air. One UN ambassador said, "We've misunderstood him. He doesn't want attention, he wants liberation." But behind the lens, something darker brewed. Inside a hotel in Morocco, two operatives received an encrypted file labeled, "Target confirmed, arrival, August 19th, NYC." The mission was clear. Traoré was flying to the UN in 4 days. And someone wanted to make sure he never came back. It started with silence. No guards reported anything strange, no alarms triggered. But when a nurse entered Assata's room with her morning medication, the bed was empty. The little girl, the same one who gave Traoré her drawing, was gone. Panic exploded. Roads were sealed. Air traffic was frozen. Every camera feed in Ouagadougou was rewound. Nothing. Traoré didn't speak for 10 minutes when he got the call. He stood alone in the middle of the palace courtyard and stared at the sun. Then quietly, he walked inside and slammed the red emergency lockdown button. No one left the city, not diplomats, not even government workers. He called Diallo. "Whoever took her, they're sending me a message." That evening, an anonymous email arrived. "Silence is safety. One more word in New York, and she vanishes forever." Traoré stood before the press just after midnight. His voice cracked. "To those who took her, I am not afraid. I have held a dying friend in my arms. I have seen my people starve. But if you harm that child, you will answer to something greater than power." And then, for the first time in his presidency, he cried, "Live." The sun had just risen when a frail man appeared at the gates of the presidential palace. No appointment, no security clearance. He wore a faded army uniform and leaned on a wooden cane carved with tribal symbols. The guards approached, guns drawn. He raised his hand. "Tell Ibrahim that Captain Traoré is here." Traoré rushed to meet him. The old man had once fought with his father during the Sankara era. Thought to be long dead, he had been in hiding for 30 years. He took Traoré's hand and whispered, "This isn't just a war of bullets. It's a war of memory, of soul. They want to erase what Africa remembers." Traoré broke down. He fell to his knees in front of the elder, not as a leader, not as a president, but as a man who carried too many ghosts alone. "I don't know how to save her," he said. "And I don't know if I can still go to New York." Traoré lifted his face gently. "You must go, or they win, not just over you, but over all of us." That night, Traoré quietly packed his things and booked a one-way ticket to New York. The official flight to New York was scheduled for 9 p.m. Journalists waited at the airport. Security was doubled. The media speculated. Would he come, or had the threats worked? At exactly 8:54 a.m., the plane's engines roared to life. But Traoré wasn't on it. Instead, he was in a small hospital room just outside Ouagadougou, sitting beside Aissata's grandmother, who had collapsed from shock after hearing the news of the girl's disappearance. She was unconscious. Machines beeped. Traoré gently held her hand and whispered, "I failed to protect the one you love. But I swear on my mother's grave, I will bring her back." At the airport, Colonel Diallo stood at the stairs of the plane, eyes scanning the sky. Then he gave a subtle nod to the pilot. The plane took off, empty, a bluff, just to buy time. Because Traoré had one goal now, find Aissata, before the world stage even mattered. But 6,000 miles away, in a dimly lit motel in Queens, New York, a small voice whispered from behind a locked door, "Please, I want to go home." A brown package was left outside the palace gates. No name, no markings, just a USB stick taped to the top. Security brought it in. Everyone gathered. Traoré stood, hands clenched, silent. They inserted the drive into a laptop. The screen flickered. Then came her voice. "Aissata. Captain, if you can hear me. I'm okay. I'm scared, but okay." The man said, "If you talk again, I won't see you." She was in a dark room, alone. Her crayon drawing of Traoré lay on the floor behind her. Then the screen went black. Just one line of text appeared. "This is your last warning." Traoré stared at the screen without blinking. No one dared speak. Then he stood up. "Call the plane back. I'm going to New York." Diallo hesitated. "But sir, they'll—" "Let them," Traoré said. "They've already stolen enough from us. I'll face them, and I'll find her." That night, he released a public message. "To the cowards hiding behind screens, you may silence a voice, but you'll never silence a soul." The world listened. Millions shared the message, and in a cramped room in Queens, Aissata smiled for the first time in days. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré stepped off the plane at JFK, it was raining. Not one American official came to greet him. No red carpet, no convoy. Just the cold wind and his Burkina Faso flag on his chest. Protesters stood outside with signs, "Traoré out." But across the street, a group of African-American activists chanted louder, "We see you. We stand with you." The city was split. Inside the hotel where he would stay, the floor was cleared for his safety. But Traoré refused the presidential suite. Instead, he slept on the floor, using a folded coat as a pillow. His aides begged him to reconsider, but he said only, "How can I sleep in silk when Aissata sleeps in chains?" Meanwhile, in a warehouse near Brooklyn, the captors watched the news. One turned to the other and whispered, "We should have killed him when we had the chance." But the leader shook his head. "No, let him speak, and then let the world watch him fall." Because what Traoré didn't know was this: the final trap had already been set. The United Nations General Assembly was full. Every seat taken, cameras rolling, global leaders silent. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré walked in, alone with no bodyguards, the room stirred. He stood before the world, adjusted the microphone, and paused. Then he began. "Africa is not a playground. We are not puppets, and I am not afraid." He spoke of children dying in silence, of drones bombing villages without warning, of resources stolen in daylight. He told the story of Aissata, the orphan girl who drew him smiling. "If you want to understand why we fight, look into her eyes. Look at what your fear has done to her childhood." The hall was silent. A few ambassadors wept. He ended with one line, "You may fear my voice, but deep down, you fear what happens when we no longer need you." A standing ovation followed. Even UN staff cried. But in the shadows above the balcony, a sniper adjusted his scope. And back in that dark room in Brooklyn, someone said, "He spoke. Now we finish this." Security was tight. Cameras watched every corner. And yet, it happened in seconds. Traoré had just finished a closed-door meeting when the lights cut out for 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Enough. When power returned, one of his guards lay bleeding in the hallway. A window was shattered, and a single word had been written in red spray paint on the wall: "Leave." But Traoré was untouched. Barely an hour later, a call came to his hotel room. It was her voice, weak, but alive. "Captain, they're scared. I think they're going to move me." He choked back tears. "Where are you, Aissata?" I don't know." Then silence. No goodbye, no scream. Just silence. He slammed his hand into the wall. His knuckles split. His eyes flooded with tears, but not from fear, from rage, from guilt, from helplessness. His team tracked the call to a signal tower in Queensbridge. "We move tonight," he ordered. "I'm done waiting." That night, dressed in plain clothes, Captain Traoré left the hotel, without protection, without permission. Only one thing in his mind: bring her home, or die trying. The warehouse in Queensbridge was quiet. Too quiet. Colonel Diallo, 3 local volunteers, and 1 ex-military immigrant from Ghana joined Traoré, armed only with flashlights and pistols. They found the building, just as the signal predicted. Inside, abandoned crates, torn plastic, old cameras. Silence. And then, the sound. Faint. Barely there. A cough. A child's cough. They ran, room to room, until they reached it. A steel door, locked from the outside. Traoré pounded it with his fists. "Aissata," a soft voice inside replied. "Captain." She was alive. Diallo worked the lock. "Nothing." "Move," Traoré whispered. He stepped back and kicked. Again and again. His hands were shaking, bleeding, until finally the door cracked open, and there she was, Her dress was torn, her eyes swollen. But when she saw him, she smiled. "You came." He knelt down, scooped her into his arms, and whispered, "I promised. I never break my promises." A hidden camera in the corner caught it all. The footage would go viral within hours. But in that moment, it wasn't about cameras. It was about a leader who didn't just talk about his people. He walked through fire to save one. The video went viral in 2 hours. Burkina Faso's president rescues kidnapped girl with his own hands. Not security, not the military, not diplomacy. He went himself. People cried. Even Traoré's critics paused. CNN called it one of the rawest acts of leadership seen in decades. On social media, millions of parents wept watching the moment Aissata said, "You came." Children across Africa drew pictures of her rescue and posted them with the hashtag #SheCameHome. But in a small hospital room in Harlem, where Aissata was recovering, something happened that no one expected. She spoke live on television. She looked into the camera and said simply, "Captain Traoré didn't save me because I'm important. He saved me because I matter. And I want all kids in Africa to know, you matter too." There wasn't a dry eye across the continent. And suddenly, the world realized, this wasn't just about Burkina Faso. This was about all the forgotten children, and the man who refused to forget them. No cameras, no announcements. Just one black SUV parked quietly on a dirt road outside Koudougou, where Mariam Ouedraogo, mother of the fallen boy Idrissa, was being buried. She had died from a stroke after hearing of Aissata's rescue. Her heart, perhaps, couldn't carry the weight of both hope and sorrow. Traoré arrived alone. No guards, no title. He stood under the same mango tree where she once cried beside him. He held a single white rose and a letter. He bent down beside her grave and whispered, "You said if Trump came here, he should visit Idrissa's grave. I am here in his place, not in anger, but in honor." He laid the rose on the earth and left the letter. In it, he had written one final message. "I never wanted war. I wanted respect, and for the world to see what love looks like when it leads a nation." He walked away. Behind him, villagers watched in silence, not as citizens, but as family. The final press conference. Traoré stood before the world one last time before returning to Burkina Faso. He didn't talk about Trump, or threats, or politics. Instead, he shared a story. "When I was 10 years old, I was told I would never be more than a village boy, that I would die young, that my voice would never matter. But today, I rescued a child. I held her hand. I brought her home. And that is the greatest thing I will ever do." Then he paused, looked directly into the camera, eyes glistening. "If you're watching this, wherever you are, I want to tell you something. You are not powerless. Your life matters. And if you ever feel like no one will come for you, remember, someone did." The hall stood in silence, a single clap, then another, then thousands, as the camera faded to black. If this story touched your heart, if you felt your chest tighten, your eyes water, if you saw your own childhood in Aissata's voice, or your own dreams in Traoré's fight, like this video, comment your favorite moment that broke you. Subscribe if you believe the world still needs leaders who feel and fight for the forgotten. Your comment might just be the one that gives someone else hope. Let's make sure the story of Aissata and Captain Traoré is never forgotten.